So let's rewind, because when we say cellular voltage and cellular health and cellular exercise, it's a whole new concept. It's 2020, and so many of us have all of these stressors coming out at us that we don't even realize that are affecting us, and the way that we show up, the way that we're connected to ourselves, the way we feel about ourselves, our mood, our state, our identity, and we wonder why depression is at an all-time high and why we numb out, because there's a major problem happening. So what is going on?
A lot of people don't realize that in addition to us being physical, mental, and emotional beings and spiritual beings, that we're also electric. Like we have electricity pumping through our minds and bodies. You know, this is the nervous system. And, you know, based on how you've treated your body over time or what's happened to the body, and unfortunately now what the environment is doing to the body, that battery level has been and continues to be depleted. And let me take a step back. So one, we're electric, and two, we have cells in our bodies, right? According to experts, we have about 100 trillion cells in our bodies. And every one of those cells is literally a wet battery that requires electricity. And that's when I was talking about, like, based on how, you know, what's happened to the body, what the environment's doing to that body, that battery level has been and continues to be depleted. Not to mention if you have pain or chronic pain, or dis-ease or chronic dis-ease in the body. And there's a reason why I'm going from like 100 down to 0 as that battery gets depleted. And when you hear me talk about voltage or cellular energy or cellular voltage, I'm talking like a battery level. So think about the battery level going from 100 to 0. And so the way to really think about PEMF, this pulse PEMF, is an efficient and effective battery recharger. Right? It's giving the cells the energy, the resources it needs so that it can do what it was intended to do, which is to self-heal. You know, we're enhancing those self-healing, self-regulating mechanisms in the body and supporting a lot of systems of the body. And so we can, of course, break that down in the future or during this conversation. But I think it's important to know, like, hey, one, we're electric. Two, we have cells. Every one of those cells is a battery and is literally increasing that battery level, a human recharger, if you will. And so I think that foundation will really help us going forward in this conversation and really have it stick going forward after this. Because if I can't simplify a message and someone can't relate to their grandmother after this, then I didn't do my job correctly. I want to make sure that, like, you know, we charge our phones, our computers, now cars. And it's like, when do we charge ourselves? And it's so important, like you said, given the environment and various stressors that we have in our life today.
So then what the heck is happening to the cell when we're exposed to a bad diet, lack of exercise, EMFs, chemicals, air pollutants, environmental factors? What is actually happening to our cell?
In short, that cell voltage, that battery level is being depleted. Now, to elaborate on that, you know, we always lean on our experts at Pulse Centers, whether it be at doctors in our network. And so I believe it was both Dr. Jerry Tennant and Dr. Pollack that talk about this very thing. There's a book called Healing is Voltage for those listeners out there by Dr. Jerry Tennant. And we'll dive into everything that you just mentioned. But one of the main things that he talks about decreasing that cellular voltage in the cell is hypothyroidism, dental infections, lack of exercise, lack of stomach acid, and scars. And so it's interesting, those 5 that he picked as being the major contributors for that. But then also, like you said, whether it be bad diet, pollutants, all these things, all these various stressors, whether it be physically, mentally, or emotional, are causing depletion in these batteries, if you will, right? And one of the things that he talks about is this. So a healthy cell operates at about 20 to 25 millivolts. And it's actually negative 20 to negative 25 millivolts, but without talking kind of, you know, negative and positives and getting into the nitty gritty here. Just think 20 to 25 millivolts for a second. Okay, just keep that number in mind. When the body drops below 20 millivolts, meaning a lot of these stressors that are happening, like you mentioned, when it drops below 20 millivolts, the cells become sick. We become sick. And if you guys can see me here holding up like an invisible battery here from 100 to 0, when it drops below 20, the cells become sick, we become sick. First sign is usually pain, and I'm dropping the battery level, then chronic pain, then dis-ease, then chronic disease. He does a great job of, in detail, talking about what happens in the system and the organs and the oxygen and the bugs that wake up when the oxygen's down. Like, just over and over and over, as voltage tends to drop, what starts to happen. The interesting thing here, we live in a time, like we've been talking about, where we live in concrete jungles. We're never outside, getting exposed to, the sunshine and walking on the earth and moving and all these things that really help. But, if you're in some kind of debilitating state, whether it's pain, chronic disease, then we need something, hence PEMF, especially something that we have here, that really bridges the gap between ancient wisdom and modern technology. It's really meeting people where they're at these days, because we are dropping that voltage over time. Now, one of the things that Dr. Jerry mentions in his Healing is Voltage book is, in order for the body to truly heal, which would be by making new cells in that area, remember that 20 to 25, that healthy cell, it actually needs to reach a voltage level of 50 millivolts in order for the body to truly and finally heal, which would be by creating those new cells. Otherwise, everything else is just a Band-Aid. We live in America right now where absorption is a problem, not to mention if you have some kind of autoimmune or dealing with XYZ or ABC. And you could be doing all the great things, but if you're not addressing the root cause, if you're not going to the cells and making sure that they're operating efficiently and effectively, then because we're interconnected, so many parts of our mind and body are not communicating well together and not working properly.
That's a great example, because all I see is stress, emotional stress, physical stress, mental stress. And we just see our battery drop and we try to get it up. If we don't get it past this point, I should go like this, past this point, then we stay stuck. And that's essentially what you're referring to, right? So until we get it high enough, that's when we start to heal.